All right. Hello, everyone. So welcome to, we're calling this low code zone. So where Phil shares the cool stuff he's working on so that you're going to have to do a lot less coding to build a lot more cool stuff.
Cool. Let's call it haphazard because I've been working with Tom all afternoon on networking and I've kind of forgot what I'm doing. But anyway,
yeah, perfect. And it is okay if things break. This isn't about like perfect demos. This
All
is
right,
just
things are
about
going to
showing
break.
cool stuff.
Yeah. All right. So, right, what have I been doing? So I built this whole in-browser editing system, editor and stuff like that, which is kind of cool, but it was very opinionated and very, you have to do it this way. And had a chat with Mary, and it was cool, but I was like, we could make this a lot more flexible. So what I did was I've extracted a lot of that stuff and made it into some bash and node scripts and stuff like that. And all the work that I did with the editor and stuff like that actually fits really well with a like a version control system. So none of that work's going to go to waste, but I'll reuse that stuff later. But essentially what I wanted to be able to do was start from scratch and build a new nice web app hooked up to Holochain, where I didn't have to remember all the bits and pieces that I needed to do because of all this other stuff that I had to do. So my favorite thing at the moment is 𝗔𝗯cie, and they have these, you can do plugins and presets and things like that. So Vue has this idea of a preset where you can like use the CLI, you can like Vue create a project and then set a preset and it will do all these bits and pieces for you. And 𝗔𝗯cie, which is the really cool material design front end for it, has a preset. So let's see what happens. Right, where are we? So, one of these, got too many tabs open as usual. Right, here we go. So I have built this out. I'll show you the app I built first. I built this really, really simple app, and funnily enough, I called it simple because all I wanted to do was have a single zone with a single entry type and just be able to edit it. And then we've got the added complication, right? So now we have a Holochain application where you need an agent key and you need to cell ID for the DNA and all that kind of stuff. But then, and so you don't log in because, it's my device. So I'm the person, right? But if I use the same app as a Holo hosted app, that could be anybody and you need to log in. So you need the actual application itself doesn't do any of the logging in. You need to kind of give it that information. So I'm not quite sure how Holo's working just yet. I'm going to catch up with those guys later. But what I did with Holochain was install the app into the conductor remote in a separate instance, pass that across. And I'll show you that stuff later. But the app is really simple. And so what I did was, so this is the homepage. And here it's explaining what it is. So this is a Vue app using 𝗔𝗯cie and Holochain and Vue Router and Vuex and all the cool stuff that, if you're a good web developer, you're trying to use. I'm also using IndexedDB, which is the in-browser database, which is super fast. And that gives you the ability to do this thing that they call stale while revalidate. So what that means is like you navigate to a route and then give you what we last saw, and then go and hit Holochain and update the data in the background so that the experience is nice and fast. And, you can see you can keep using your application while the data is refreshing in the background. That's what that's about. And then this what's next thing is like, what should you do? Well, you get, the idea is that you'll get this simple app and then go and modify it for your own application. Put some features in here. It's powered by Holochain, so I ripped off a bit of the Holochain website there, and you describe your features because you need this homepage. Because if you're not using Holochain and you have to log in, there's a login and register that comes at the top, which I can show you if we just let's do another one, shall we? Let's do 4003. So you'll see on this one, where I've got the agent key and stuff in the URL, I'll explain that a bit later. I don't have to log in, but if I go to 40,003, where I don't have that information, it's now asking me to log in, and this is where I'm going to integrate with the Holo, the Holo hosted app. Right? So the app is kind of simple, as you'd expect. Click on here, and you can just add things. Right? Everybody loves Dr. Seuss, right? So thing 1, thing 2, like etc. And save that in here. And if we have a quick look into the database, you'll see we've got this thing called IndexedDB, which has been in browsers for quite a number of years now, but recently has become really powerful. And there's this nice wrapper for it called 𝗔𝗯cie, which I'm using, and it turns it from, it's actually LNDB under the hood, which is what we use in Holochain, which is just a key value store, but with 𝗔𝗯cie, they've given you all these abilities to query it and stuff like that. Which means that all of the data that you ever pull out of Holochain is immediately in your browser, and you don't need to wait to query the network and stuff like that. And this is what I mean by stale while revalidate. So immediately it gives you this information, and then it's also fetching from Holochain and updating it in the background. So I can demonstrate that by, if I delete all the information out of here, so there's nothing in the database, and refresh the page, it actually went off to Holochain, pulled all the information out and put it back in the database. It's nice and fast. So you can do the things you'd expect to be able to do, add a new one, as we saw. And you can edit them. So let's go. Now, when I say simple, I mean really simple. When I do this update, which makes it look like I updated it, what actually happened in Holochain was it deleted the existing entry and created a new one. Because unlike a database where you can actually update a record and kind of save a bit of memory, etc., you don't do that with Holochain. You literally just create a new entry. And whether or not you update an entry or delete it and create a new one, it makes no real difference as far as I can tell. There are some things with updates where you can follow that through, but I don't think that's actually working just yet. And of course you can delete. Right, so this is a nice pattern. I'll show you some of the code. So as you can see, I was working on Elemental Chat today. So in the simple one, we have the main page, which so app is like the default container for your view application. And here we're getting some stuff out of local storage and using the Vuex store, which is like a central state management. So here I'm dispatching a few things saying, right, go and initialize this and then fetch my things. And if we have a look at initialize, this is where it creates the 𝗔𝗯cie database or the IndexedDB database. And this is how you do that. And we're actually connecting up the WebSocket that is connected to Holochain as well here. So now the app has the database and it's connected to Holochain. And then you dispatch the one that said fetch things, which is this call here. And you can see here, this is using that the in-browser database index store called things. And this is getting me all of the things out of that and turning it into an array and then committing that to the state. So this is how you make changes to the UI. So that's done, that's immediate. And then after that's happened, then it goes off and calls the list things zone in Holochain and then updates the data again, like here. So when it gets the result back, turns it back into so it updates everything in the database and then commits it to. So this is how you get the stale while revalidate. It's a nice fast pattern. It's really cool. All right, and I've also made it so that you don't have to implicitly declare these store files. It'll just automatically find anything you call .store and just add it in. So if you want to add in like other, so if your app gets more complicated, you can just drop more store files in there and it automatically gets added in. And then Vue has a nice routing system. So this is really simple routes, just going straight to a page and loading up a component. And that's the main parts of it. So that's our app. Now, see, I've got 40,001 is one person, and 40,002 is a separate person. So if I refresh that, we will get the same information across two. So it's two agents talking to the one instance of Holochain, getting the same data out. Now, doing all of this is a bit laborious, right? If you have to do everything manually, because you literally have to go and build your DNA. So I'll show you the DNA. So you've got these zooms in here. And here's my thing entry with a name field on it, and then my handlers. So I can create, delete, and list, and that's it. Now, if I make a change, then you have to build it, reinstall it, and then get new cell IDs for your applications and go through the whole process, right? Which is a bit of a pain in the bum. So how about we'll try that out, shall we? Let's add in an extra field. Let's call it name and call it location. So just put location there. And yeah. Now the reason we have two is because this is what is stored in Holochain, which is why it's called entry. So that's what's actually stored in Holochain. This thing here is what is returned to the UI, and it has the entry hash on it as well, so that we can do things like delete, because you need the entry hash here to be able to delete the entry. Right? And so let's just put location here. All right, now let's go and update the test. And you'll see that the way that I've organized things is I've made it so that these things are really easy to rename as well. So if I wanted to add another entry type and call it contact, I can literally duplicate this one and rename thing to contact, and now I've got another entry type. Same with the tests. So we'll just add into the tests. As you can see, I've copied this from somewhere else. Let's call that location. We'll get rid of. And see, this is what happens when you spend all afternoon working with Tom, when I should have been prepping for my meeting. But then again, that's what we call it. What do we call this? Haphazard with Phil?
Exactly.
Actually, we're going to call this. So these are things, aren't they? Let's call this. So what is really, really cool that I really love about the new version of Holochain is this thing called path. Because now you don't need to make a separate entry to hang things off to do a list of things. You can literally go, here's my path, and put anything you like in there. It's string, whatever you like. And then that can be the entry that you then list everything off. So, and when you use the dots, you can go, you know, like it's like a file system in the folders as you go down through the levels. So you can go down to, I think it's 400 bytes. And what's really cool about it is that, I'm not quite sure of the syntax, but it goes something like this. You can go, so imagine I've got, doing a parent of things, right? So if I'm listing everything off things and I've got millions of things, then that creates a hotspot in the DHT, right? Because you have to go and find the node that's got things on it and then list everything off that. And we don't really want to do that. You want to shard the data across the network so it's nice and even. You can literally do, I'm not quite sure the syntax, but it's something like this. You can go depth 3. And what that does is that'll take the last 3 characters, which in this case is S and G, and turn it into .n.g.s, which then spreads that across the network. So now instead of going to one entry that's looking for things, I go to one that's like THI, and then looking all across the network for N and G and S. So by default, well, like instantly, it gives you sharding of the data. So you get no hotspots, which is really cool. Right, where are we? Tests. So, right. So now we've added in this extra field called location. We should be able to go and test it. Go to the right location. So there's tests. Here we go. Oh, yeah, I started using this material theme in Visual Studio, and I really like it. Like the font's really nice, and it's clear. I don't get tired anymore, which is cool. All right, so now we're in there. We can go intro and test, and I'll just show you what happens when I do that. That actually builds and packages it with the DNA util, and then runs the tests. So as you'll see, it's compiling it. See how fast the compilation is now, even when we changed it. All right, 3 seconds. So now what that did was that's actually created this GZ file, which is a new one. So now I've got this new GZ file. I have to install it. Oh, okay, that's a pain in the bum, isn't it? What about if we just were able to do this? So I can now go install. So now I've got my new one. And not only did that install it, that also gave me new agents to go and have a look at. So if we go to conductor, agent apps, 4001, and see how this is a markdown file, so I can do this as well. So I can see that's me. And the link is going to go to 4001 with this new cell ID, hopefully. So I'll click that. And it was simple. Look at that, no data, right? Because it's a new DHT, so it's a new cell, right? All that kind of stuff. And now, but these ones, oops, not this one. These ones are still running on the old one. Yeah. So now I've got 2 different agents running 2 different versions of the same DNA. And if I go and try and run this new one and try and add in, we'll put on the console thing so you can see what's going on. It's going to complain when I try to add a new one because I don't have the field. Right? Message, boom, right? Failed. Right? Why did it fail? Oh, that's because we're missing a field. Oops. How much fun is moving that Zoom video thing around all the time? All right, here we go. What's our message? Missing field location. Ah, okay, all right.
Yeah.
So now I would just literally go back into my app and add that in. So you can see like the speed of being able to do that is like nice and fast. It's still a little clunky because I was only working on that today. Cool. But what I want to show you is another thing. Let's go back and let's start from scratch, shall we? Let's go and turn off my conductor. They can stay there. Right. So if we go to the conductor, and I'll just delete these because these are the ones I just created, and I'll get rid of these keys because I want to start from scratch. Oops, cancel. And files. So see all these different cells? They're all the ones I just installed. So we'll just delete those. So in the developer YAML, oh, look at that. Yeah. It nearly works. Tom's got it working from his end, but it wasn't working from my end. So what this does is this will say, right, when I run the conductor, I want you to put all the files in this location, which is going to come up in under here. And I was like, what I really want to do is I want to install multiple agents so that I can test them all, like we did with the, I got these 3 different URLs, different people. But it's a pain doing that all the time and creating the keys and stuff. And I was like, what's a really easy way to do it where I can remember who the hell's who, right? I was like, well, what about if I just get some avatars of some people in our organization and use those avatars as the thing to create keys from? So here, this is going to connect to Holochain. It reads that directory looking for those avatars, and then it'll create a key for each avatar and create a new file that is the name of the key. But how do you create a file with a 39 parameter byte array, right? Painful. You can turn it all into base64. Ooh, nice, right? But then base64 doesn't work really well in a URL half the time because it has slashes and stuff like that. So you encode the URI, encode the base64 into URI, then I can pass it in the query string. And then we can decode it in the app. So this way I get to install the applications and the agent keys separately from the application, which means the applications will now work for Holo and Holochain. Should we see what happens? Let's go here. Let's run our conductor again. So when you hit run, it created these files here. So now I've got conductor, peer-to-peer, and WASM. These are the various databases that are running. And right, so that's all running. So now what it did was it created these keys. No, it didn't. What happened? Oh, we didn't run it yet. Right, so we're running, so the conductor is running. Now what I want to do is create all the keys for those avatars. So I just run this script here. And here we go. We've got these 3 keys that I got created now. Right. And we can click on those and see who's who. Right, so Mary, that's Mary's key, etc. And now what I want to do is install that GZ file that we did when we ran the tests here, which is this one here, simple GZ at the moment. And so what I wanted to do was make this so that it was flexible, but I didn't have to do everything for everybody, right? So literally you just come in here and you give it the path to the GZ file, call it what you like, and we can install this file now, or this cell for each of the agents, which will give us the same, so cell ID is a combination of the hash for the DNA and an agent. So the first part will be the same for all 3 of these agents, and the second part is the agent key. So if we do install, the same thing, boom. And there's a bit of debugging there that's going on, so I can see the keys and stuff coming out. If we're going to look in here now, we've now got this thing called, I call them agent apps. So there's one for Mary, and she is 4001, and there's one for Arthur, and one for me. So now to get into my application with an agent key and the correct cell ID and knowing the port that I'm supposed to connect to as well, I can literally press this button here. And now, remember when we did it before? Oops, 4003, and it said login because I didn't have an agent key. This is kind of like the Holo experience. But because I've installed it, and I'm on the same 4003 now, but I've got an agent key, it knows that I'm logged in, right? So now I can go and use this app. So let's add a new one in here. Let's say, oh no, that hasn't got location yet, has it? Let's just quickly go and add that in. Down here to the views, homes thing, and we'll just add a new field on here called location. Right, that should be enough. Yep, okay. And you see all the work that I've done here to set things up for people. This is using Vuex to do all the map state and mapping the actions from out of the state store and everything so that you end up with a nicely engineered application, but you didn't have to figure everything out for yourself because I did that for you. So now if we go and run this up and we add a new one in here. Oh, we haven't got a, let's actually add the field in, shall we? Name, columns. Oh yeah, and Vue has this, oops. Vue has this really cool grid system where if you say, so it's 12 grids, it's like Bootstrap. So if you say 12, it's going to take up the whole 12. If I say, you know, I can put them So if we have a look at this, you can see they're one underneath each other, because that's going to be location. And label should be. But if I want them side by side, I literally just go like this. Oops, 6. There you go, side by side. Oh, look, there's no spacing. Oh, that's terrible. Put some gutters in there, shall we? Much better. See, material design's fantastic. Right, so I can go, let's say, David. And no, you're not London anymore. Where are you now?
So where am I? Hampshire.
Hampshire.
Yep.
Not New Hampshire, not Old Hampshire.
Exactly.
Not South Hampshire. Oh, it didn't show up here, right? Because I didn't put it in the thing here. So let's just go down here and add it into the column. This one's called location. And we'll let it sort. Oops. Comma. All right, there we go. So let's add another one in. We'll put one in for me. Why not? Fill in. Save. Right. Now let's go and fire up 4002. Who was this one? It's Arthur. So let's go him now. All right. So he's logged in as well. Go there. Search it. Done. Right. So that's the basis of the app, right? It's really, it's nicely engineered, and it just talks to Holochain and doesn't do anything particularly complicated. Because now what I want to do is start from scratch. So let's get rid of all these and shut this down. And right. So now what I want to do is I want to start a new application based on this preset. And I'm going to call it Rolodex, because I've already got one called Holodex that I was working on, but we're going to call this one Rolodex, right? So if I hit this button here, it's creating a view project, and it is now getting all these bits and pieces that view needs. And it's applying this preset here that I made. So this is the preset. So when you go through and install the Vue app from scratch, it asks all these questions. You know, do you want to use Vuex? Do you want to use Babel? Do you want to make it a progressive web app and all this kind of stuff, which you can answer yes or no, and then you get the option to save it. But then you can also add in other things, like I've added in Vuetify here. So oops, you can see here that it is nearly done. Right, so now a new website, Vuetify. Right, so let's go and have a look at that. I hope you like pink. Ready? Right. So now this is a Vue website with the Vuetify plugin applied to it. Right? So they've done all these changes. And what that does is you can set up these things. I'll show you this one in a sec because I'm going to do it. You can set up templates and say, right, I've got a template here, and this one is called simple. And when I go through the process of the next step, I can select these different templates. So I'm actually going to install this because I haven't finished it yet, which is why I have to install it. But you can put these on GitHub and NPM as well, which is where this is going to go eventually. If I just do yarn, is it? No. Sorry. I forgot that thing. Again, the plugin dev, here we go. So there we go. Save dev. So that path. I'm just going to split chips because I've mixed yarn and npm, but who cares? Boom. So what this is doing is this is now allowing me to use my own plugin, which would be a sec, because you can then do this thing called invoke. So, and this is just one way of doing it. I've done a template, but you can do all these other different things with Vue, with this CLI, to make your life much easier. So Vue CLI plugin Holochain. You have to prefix all these things with Vue CLI plugin so that it knows what it is. Because it's got this search system too, where we go and look on GitHub and find these things for you. So if we have just have a quick look at this app again, you can see that it doesn't really have much to it, right? It's just one page. And so some of the things you can do, you can set up, you can tell it to install all your dependencies as well, which I haven't got to yet. So, right, so now I've got that thing installed. I can go view invoke. And this will invoke my plugin, which is going to ask, what do I want to install? Oh, I want to install the Holochain Simple Beautify project. Yeah, because that'll be cool, right? Boom. For now. So the objective of this is what I'll be able to get to is, so we've got the simple one for now, but Beautify has all these like wireframes as well. Wireframes. So the idea is that I'll be able to set it up and say, right, what do you want? I want to do like an inbox kind of app. So this could be like a default setup, which is already hooked up to, channels and messages and stuff like that, so that people are not starting from a blank screen all the time. They go, my app is basically, it's basically Discord, right? I want to build an app like that. So you could start off with this whole thing, and I can give you all the bits and pieces that go with this as part of Holochain, and then you use these, these scripts to make things, and it'll give you that whole chunk, like you've started off, 2 miles down the road, rather than we should have another app. Yeah, so we'll be able to give you all these different layouts that are set up and different scenarios, like what is the behavior of your application? Is this a messaging app? Is this a finance app, or that kind of thing? So that people can, what I want to give people is the ability to start from something like, here's a generic kind of solution for this type of application. Now you can, instead of starting from scratch and having to make all those decisions again, you start from here. If you like the decisions I make, cool, keep them. If not, do it your own way, And I broke something. Oh, cool. Okay, so these are the dependencies that I need to add into the generator. Next. I'm using the next one because they've solved a lot of the problems with things like Safari. Do you reckon Safari is the new Internet Explorer 6? Says me on a Mac.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right, so we'll just install these things here. So you see that I installed the Holochain Conductor API, which is that gives you the WebSocket stuff directly to Holochain. And if we run that again, should have worked this time. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. That's because there's an extra bit in here. is it called? Liberates, right? Source plugins. Delete. No, main. Where is it? Main. There we go. That doesn't need to be there. Right. So now if we go and look at this, remember it was that lovely pink website before. And here we go. It worked. So now, by using the, so what I'm going to be able to do is you won't have to do that second step soon. You'll just be able to go use this preset and it will come out like this in one go. And this has got everything you need. So Rolodex, which is our new app, you can see it's got the store, everything all set up, all ready for you to go. And right, so that's one part of it. Now, what I was also working on, which I haven't got to here, is copying in existing DNAs and renaming them and things like that, so that we've got this like library of pre-existing bits and pieces that we've already worked on. They go, right, well, this app just requires a simple DNA, so I can copy it in there and rename it to contacts and whatever.
I think, Phil, let's save that one for next week.
Yeah, cool.
I think like that's awesome, and especially giving people a sense of the way is it your agent keys allow you to be moving through web of Holochain applications. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, and I really like the because it's been one of the things that I keep bugging Arthur about is like, how are we going to do the upgrades of DNAs? Like, how does the data get across there? So now that I can have two agents on two different versions of essentially the same thing, I can really start experimenting. But well, you know, because it's not one size fits all. It's like, okay, in this particular scenario, we just want to migrate all the data. In this scenario, let's use it like a garbage collection and not bring across deleted stuff. And in this scenario, let's do that. So yeah, this is really going to give a lot of flexibility to test the stuff out so that we can actually see. And actually what I really liked about that too was you can demonstrate to people immediately, right? Okay, if you go in there and breathe near that DNA and change that code, great, you're the agent, do it. But you're on your own network now.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that's a really, that's a nice little demo to show people how.
It's a really nice demo to show that. Awesome. Well, thank you. Look forward to catching up. I think it's a week after next, to every 2 weeks.
Yeah, cool. Yep.
And so that's awesome. Thanks so much, Phil.
No worries, mate.
All right, super.
See you next time.